fond dans Nouveau et alors que c'est pas vraiment le cas.
How do you pronounce your name?
Just Alex.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the simplest.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start our second talk here. Alex and Martin are going to give us a Nouveau status update. So go ahead, guys.
Hey everyone. So we're going to give a status report on Nouveau. So who are we? There's Alexandre Courbot here from Nvidia, and I'm Martin Perez from Intel. So the way it works is that I work on this project on my spare time, and this is not at all sponsored by Intel, of course.
Yeah, so and Nvidia actually pays me to work on Nouveau now, but the scope is pretty limited. We are mainly interested in Integra support, so it's not like Nvidia did not took over the project yet.
So first thing to see about this page is that now we have a logo. So, yeah. So it was made by Valeria Aguilera, and it's in an open, CC by ND, so it's not too bad. Okay, up. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So what will be the agenda for the presentation? So we're gonna talk about the kernel and the part of it is the re-architecture that we made. Then we'll talk about the user space, the Tegra and Maxwell support, what is the current big tasks that we are having, then what is the cooperation that we have now with Nvidia, which is something I guess everyone is interested in, and then who is the team behind Nouveau. So yeah, last presentation we gave was at FOSDEM 2014, so it's been some time. So yeah, let's have another one today. Of course, we have improvements.
Yeah, and so we start with the kernel. Very recently, there has been a very important core architecture change. So huge refactoring made by Ben Skeggs, who's the kernel maintainer for Nouveau. So it did not bring any new feature, but according to Ben, it made the code much cleaner and sane than it was. Not that it was bad to begin with, in my opinion, but Ben thought it needed a refactor. So there has also been the introduction of NVIF, which is an interface. Mostly, I guess we can say it's a kind of a virtualization interface. It allows user space to directly call some of the classes and some of the methods from the kernel, so which is handy for development. But the actual goal is to allow GPU virtualization in the near future. There has been a work on performance counter that has been done by Samuel Pitwaze, who's going to talk right after us about this, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. Reclocking for more GPUs, especially Kepler, is getting pretty good.
Well, it was actually mostly the end of the Tesla series, so before Fermi. So this one got stable because we had a Google Summer of Code. No, Evoc. An Evoc on this, so the endless vacation of code, sponsored by X.Org. And so Roy worked on it for 3 months, just trying to get the card to reclock properly, and he made tremendous improvements on it. And since then, we've been trying to port some of his work to Kepler, and it's getting better. And apparently, Maxwell is reclocking since this morning. So,
and there has been several contributions by Nvidia, mostly related to improving Tegra support. First, we contributed, this has been merged a while ago, the explicit handling of coherent objects, because on ARM systems, we cannot rely on the PCI bus to maintain buffer coherency between CPU and GPU, so we have to handle that manually. And so we contributed some work in the kernel and in Mesa to handle that. We also submitted an RFC for new submit ioctl. It's not merged yet, but that's something I would really like to see merged in the future. But basically, the big difference is that brings synchronization back to user space. User space is responsible for managing the synchronization of objects and not the kernel. Right now, when you submit a job to Nouveau, you acquire a lock on all the GPU objects that this job is going to manipulate, which is not optimal in cases where you want to, for instance, if you want to do suballocation, you have a big GPU buffer, and you're going to use smaller areas of this object. You are going to lock the entire object, and so prevent any other job that touches another part of this object from working. So that's something we would like to see merge in the future, because we think it's going to help quite significantly when it comes to performance. And also we started pushing a fixed address allocator to improve compute support, and especially support the new compute specifications.
So now on the user space side, we got updates mostly on support. So of course Nvidia releases a lot of cards. You're aware of this, and there are new chipsets coming pretty fast. So we added support for the ISA of the first Maxwell, so the Maxwell first generation, in May 2014, and added support for the GK110 and GK208 ISA the month later, which is a bit weird because it got released much earlier, but they are very expensive cards, at least the GK110, so that's why we didn't get access to it before. It's only wonder the JK208 got released that, well, yeah, it's very cheap, so we can buy that. Yeah, so on the OpenGL side, what I guess most people are interested in, we got OpenGL 3.3 in Mesa 10.1. So that's for the Tesla family, so GeForce 8 and 9, so that's old stuff. And we very recently reached OpenGL 4.1 for Fermi and later, so that would be every card that is younger than 5 years old. Very good. Also, there's been some work by Samuel to add support for the GL-AMD performance monitor to expose the performance counters, which is great. Well, make use of this, but he's going to talk about this. And what is the upcoming work? So it would be, again, so performance counters related work, and then there's no real plan. So aside from that, it's just, yeah, every time you want to support something, just add support for it. On the DDX side, there's been a change that we talked about yesterday during the presentation. No, not the presentation, but the kind of impromptu talk that Keith made. And so we've been dropping support for Glamour and DRI3 for Maxwell. And so we advise to use the mode setting driver for that. Luckily, apparently it works by default, so all good.
Oh, Tegra support. So that's where most of the contributions were made by Nvidia are. We started submitting patches to support GK208, which is the GPU inside Tegra K1, back at the end of January. What is January? That was just before FOSDEM, but
yeah,
so
2014. Yeah,
so it was the very end of January last year, which kind of surprised people. I don't understand why, but since then we have continued support. We re-architectured a little bit the driver to support non-PCI cards. 2D, 3D started rendering around June. Reclocking worked in July, and by October we had Mesa support, and you could run Western and things inside Western.
Oh yeah, it's more than just Mesa support. It's out of the box Mesa support.
It's out of the box Mesa support, but sadly that's not the end of a story. But yeah, Mesa is supported. All the patches for the kernel and Mesa are upstream. And last month we finally merged the firmwares that are needed for GK2 into Linux firmware. So there's nothing really special about GK2 in that respect, and Nouveau could have reverse engineered the firmware and provided their own, but we decided to provide our own anyway to make sure that you can have out-of-the-box support, and also as a preparation for the Maxwell firmware.
It's apparently coming, the open source one.
Is it? Who's working on it?
Ben, you talked about that?
Okay.
That you wanted to make the open source firmwares for the GK20A.
Oh, yeah.
That, yes.
Anyway, and we also started upstreaming support for GM2OB, which is the GPU you found in the latest and newest Tegra X1 Maxwell architecture. So hopefully the contributions are also going to be useful for general Maxwell support. The basic kernel support is already merged. Reclocking, power managements are in the pipe. We have a code for that. We plan to push support actually further than what we did for Tegra K1. We want to support advanced features like frame buffer compression. And the big part is going to be secure boot and signed firmware support for Maxwell. I'm going to talk about it right after that. So we said that for GK2A at least you have out-of-the-box support. That's mostly true, but not completely, because so everything is upstream on the kernel side, on the Mesa side. But if you try to run a KMS application, it just won't work because on Tegra the GPU and the display controller are not on the same peripheral. They are separate peripherals, separate drivers. So you have to use one DRI node for display and another for GPU, and so you have to share the buffers using Prime. This is it's actually completely mandatory on Tegra, and most applications today are not written with that in mind. They just open dev DRI card 0 and assume that they will find the display and the GPU on this single node. So if you want to run Western, you have to actually add, I think it's not much, it's just 100 lines worth of code to support that, and it's going to run, but it's also the same, I think, for X mod setting and Glamour. If you want to, you have to patch it a little bit. And well, that's a problem that is solved by render nodes. So can we start using render nodes now? This would be really great, and it doesn't. It shouldn't cause any problem. Sadly, just doing that is still not enough to solve the problem, because the GPU on Nvidia cards, on modern Nvidia cards, renders using a tiled format. So it's not linear. So if you want to display that these buffers, you can of course convert them to linear format and send them to the display controller, but this is going to there is of course some overhead doing that. Thankfully, the Tegra display controller understands the tiled format that is written by the GPU, so you can just take the buffer as is and send it. But you have to tell it that this buffer is tiled, and it takes device-specific, a driver-specific ioctl. That again is not, contrary to Prime, is not portable, is Tegra-specific, and so you also have to add a few lines of Tegra-specific code in order to support that out of the box. So that's a more general problem. There is a buffer format. There's also, in a more general way, you have devices that only support physically contiguous memory against page memory, and you also have a general problem of who should allocate memory in that case. Should it be Nouveau? Should it be the display controller? When you have should it be a dedicated memory allocator like Ion? When you have a pipe like that, where every part of a pipe uses the same memory, it's not really obvious where the memory should come from. So I think there is that's a topic that deserves a whole discussion by itself. How do we handle these issues on ARM SoCs?
It's been going on for years.
Yeah. I think we should have a user space library to manage that. But
Not everyone agrees.
no, yeah, I know. Let's not start this here.
No.
And then there is Maxwell Support. So I'll maybe let you do the first part.
So the GM107, so it's a it's the first generation of Maxwell. There was 2 generations. The first one was kind of an improvement on the Kepler, but did not have any kind of secure firmware or signed firmware that were necessary to do anything. So the actual card got released in February 2014, and so we started having support pretty fast. So 2D and 3D acceleration using Nvidia's firmware already in March, and it was merged in Linux 3.15, so not too bad. The 2D acceleration, yeah, we took longer, but then decided not to care about this. So it's basically using Glamour's OpenGL. Oops. What the?
Go on.
Okay. But can I do it without the slides?
That's not an Nvidia display. Sure. I'm not telling which one it is. So you can guess it's a laptop. Hold on.
So what was I saying? Okay, I forgot. That's very good. Well prepared. What now?
I'm trying to say it again.
Okay. So, but I can talk about the second one. So starting from the second generation of Maxwell, Nvidia started signing the microcodes, and without a signed microcode, you could not access some important registers, like fan management. But you can change the voltage without the firmware. So this is all good, right? So yeah, that's interesting. And so the second generation, we do not have any kind of support aside from mod setting. Hopefully Nvidia is going to release the firmware very soon, so as we can load the firmwares from Nvidia and then start doing stuff. Right now, all the experiments that have been made by Ben Skeggs have been involving CPU-based context manager, so changing the context would be done on the CPU, which is super slow. So yeah, so that is pretty bad. But aside from that, so the first generation of Maxwell so the fan management took some time to arrive because they changed for, I don't know, the 6th or 7th time how they decide to do fan management. And we got voltage control this month. So that's why I said this morning that we've made some experiments with reclocking, and only now does it start working. And yeah, we'll still have some work though to do. So that should be.
I think it's not coming back.
Okay. Oopsie.
I don't know what went wrong.
Is the connector in all the way?
I think so. Yeah.
Looks like it.
It looks okay. I can see it.
Oh, okay. So that was just this,
Oh,
apparently.
you genius. Alright.
Okay. So before that.
Yeah, excellent.
So did I miss anything? Oh yeah. So there was one thing that I missed. It's that we got open source firmwares in 4.1. So in April. And that's it. All the rest I've said.
Yeah, so one of the hot topics recently has been when is Nvidia going to release the Maxwell firmwares? The answer is soon, very soon. There are, so as Martin explained, you starting with GM2 with a second generation Maxwell GPUs, you must have Nvidia signed firmwares, otherwise you won't be able to load it, and you won't be able to do much besides setting a video mode. So it has become a increasingly pressing issue that we provide these firmwares, and we have exactly the same issue on Tegra. So we have two reasons to get this done. So the good news is that now we have code that supports loading this secure firmware that is working on Tegra. It's going to take a little bit more work to get it to support DGPU, discrete GPUs as well, but we'll get there, and then I'll submit it to Ben, and we should have at least support for loading the firmwares. Then we need to release the firmwares themselves. The main issue we have here, it's mostly an issue of internal workflow and how we work with firmwares. Basically, when the way we work internally is that we just link the firmware into our driver, and so the driver has the firmware directly at hand, so you know that the driver knows which version of the firmware it's working with, so you can just change the interface between the firmware and the kernel driver without having any consequences. But if we do that on Nouveau, this is not going to work very well. We just cannot change the interface. We need a stable interface. So there is a bit of internal pressure we need to set on some people to make sure that we have stable PMU firmwares. Once this issue is solved and I figure out how to export them in the right format, we should get somewhere. But hopefully Nvidia is going to provide full support, including the kernel code required to load these firmwares. So hopefully that will make up for the delay.
Yeah, and allow redistribution of the firmwares otherwise.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
obviously. Eventually they're going to end in Linux firmware. Is it? Oh yeah. So how we have been cooperating with a Nouveau project recently. Well, that's what I've already been talking about, the official support of Tegra GPUs. I have to make it clear, this is really only about Tegra. We don't have plans to support discrete GPUs directly, except when our help is absolutely needed in the case of Maxwell firmwares. But right now, our effort is really focused on Tegra and kernel side. We don't want to touch user space too much. There is an interesting ongoing work to provide generated header files from our own internal manuals that will include the proper register names and the proper field names for all the registers that Nouveau is using right now. Nouveau uses.
We use more than that.
Well,
but yeah, basically anything that is Tegra related would be exposed. But it's a very good hint, and it helps reverse engineering the rest. So
yeah, just having the name is a good. Well,
yeah,
I hope it's not going to be limited to Tegra. But actually, you can use that for GGPU
oh yeah,
as well.
it's gonna be.
Because
Tegra is a subset. That's what I'm saying.
At the end of the day, it's the same GPU, so
yeah.
it should be useful anywhere. So yeah, instead of having direct values in hexadecimal, maybe using names should be helpful with driver development. We started providing since last year open documentation on some aspects of a GPU, so it's still pretty scarce. There's not that much, but it has helped.
Oh,
hasn't it?
Definitely. Every time.
Thank you.
So when we ask a specific question on something that we do not understand or that is really hard to reverse engineer, they would write the documentation for us. And so it has been extremely helpful for the, so for instance, some GPUs had power gating on when booting the GPU, so that means that you need to take out the power gating, and this is a very involved process that requires timings and stuff that is just a mess to reverse engineer. So yeah, the documentation has been very helpful.
Cool.
But it's not documentation on stuff we haven't specifically asked, except for the first one. But it was really useful for the DCB BIOS tables, and it has helped us quite a lot.
Yeah. And finally, we have a mailing list where Nouveau developers can ask questions to NVIDIA engineers. So it's not a public mailing list. It just gets to the right developers, and hopefully they reply. There have been some complaints that we are not very reactive, and suggestions to replace this with a public bug tracker. So we are trying to convince the right persons that this should be done. But
it doesn't change much, because we usually, when we send an email to this, we also CC the mailing list from Nouveau, so it's public.
Right, it's public. But if there is no answer, then
Yeah,
there's
then
no-
the answer is just as public. Then yeah.
So yeah, so that's something we would like to improve a little bit.
Yeah, and on the Nouveau side, I think the only thing we've been doing was starting to use more the Nvidia's engineering names, so it helps us and them. So we used to talk always about NVC0, NVE4, and now we talk about JK104. So that's the actual marketing name of the chipset. That helps engineers.
Both names are equally opaque, but
Yeah, but if you know one, it's Nvidia knows one, so it's.
at least we speak the same language,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing. Yeah, so we're still a long way to full cooperation, but well, I think it's getting better and better, and I hope this will improve. It's good. Keep improving.
So, the team. Who is working on Nouveau? Well, it's impossible to write the entire list because there's a ton of independent contributors. The main one being Ben Skeggs. So he works with Red Hat. He's the maintainer of the kernel part. Then there's Ilya Mirkin, is independent. He works on the Mesa driver. He also does a lot of fixes to DRM when he finds issues. And then more people. So there's Alexandre working on it. It's in the alphabetic order. It's not in any way the contribution by contributions. But so you work on the Tegra. K1 Plus development and maintenance, because the previous Tegra drivers use a different driver. So it's only starting from the Tegra K1 that Nouveau can be used. So I work on power and thermal management, so it's mostly DRM side. Then there's Samuel working on performance counters, and Roy and Carol Herbst are working on reclocking, which is good. Emil has made quite a lot of fixes to improve the robustness of the Mesa code. Emil Velikov is now the release manager of Mesa. And who are we looking for? Mostly compiler enthusiasts, because the Nouveau compiler is not the sharpest one. So there's definitely people could help there, especially if they have a compiler background or they are really interested in it. And also we have almost no QA, so if anyone is interested in doing this, then they should. And how? Well, just use code from Git. It's already good, and then hopefully with a tool I've been working on, then more people could get involved and make useful bug reports aside from, hey, this game just regressed, I think. Yeah, and I think that's it. Oh no, more links. So if you want to get news about Nouveau, usually we have a very small list of big events that happened on Nouveau, so in nouveau.freedesktop.org. The video decoding support, which is some are supported, some are not, so you may be interested in having a look at this page. And the OpenGL status is best seen on Mesa Matrix. Even though it's not perfect, it's still much better than just not knowing. And this time I think that's it. Yeah, it is. So do you have any questions? Mike.
This is for you. What do you find internally is the biggest argument people have for not being more public and open with your work?
Well, so first of all, I want to say that I do not speak in name of Nvidia. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I would say, Andy, sorry. Manpower. Yeah, manpower, which has also been. Yeah, so maybe, thanks.
I mean, Nvidia is very, very aggressive with schedules. We produce a lot of GPUs. Everyone's really busy, just like anywhere else. But the biggest challenge is freeing up people's time and getting attention from the right experts to get questions answered and pull together documentation and release things and organize firmware release and all the things that we ought to be doing.
Yeah, which is also probably the reason why also the list is not always reactive when it comes to answering
So
Nouveau.
there's an implicit assumption that it's quicker to get the closed source stuff done and out than getting it. Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's mostly a cultural.
Well, do you? I mean, I'm curious if people internally are opposed for that reason. Actually,
But also, generally speaking, I would say, at least on GGPU side, what is maybe refraining Nvidia, and again, it's not an official statement, but maybe it's simply just the lack of business opportunities for Nouveau. When we have a closed source driver that works pretty well across platforms that we can release on Linux on day zero as well, then there are plenty of good incentives to support Nouveau, one of which is, I guess, the use of the standard Linux interfaces, DRM, KMS, and the like. But there's the issue of manpower, and it's not an easy issue to solve, especially when the schedules are so aggressive. And yeah. Any other question? If we have time. Well, thank you very much.